Okay, so I know this is a live stream. Didn't want to do this, but I'm having problems with my editing and stuff like that again. Um, but breaking news this morning out of Cleveland that Malik McDowell has been arrested. Um, and he's been charged with public exposure and battery on law enforcement in Florida. This is very, very disappointing. Um, and I don't know how long I'll talk about this, but I'm so frustrated right now with this because one thing that I did in the off season that I actually enjoyed, and you guys know, if you know me, I don't think I do great content, but the one thing that I really enjoyed and had fun doing, that I thought turned out pretty good, was talking about Malik McDowell's story and talking about everything he's been through and coming back now. And I said I expected him to have a big year. This is a guy who was uber talented, picked 33 overall to the Seattle Seahawks, incredible athlete, incredible player. And here we go. He has a great season for the Browns. Had a great season. He was one of the most consistent players on that defensive line for the Cleveland Browns. I mean, there was times where Malik McDowell would show up more than Myles Garrett would. And that's not an indictment on Myles Garrett. It's just what happened. I mean, Malik McDowell had an incredible impact for the Browns. And for this to come out today and the fact that he it's not really about what he did necessarily. It's about the fact that here we go again. You bring in a guy. Andrew Berry had said they believe in him as a person, that he's moved on and he's in a better place. And it's like, here we go. He gets success. And this stuff starts happening again. It's just so frustrating. And the thing is, he was setting himself up to get a nice paycheck, because if he continued on a straight path, kept playing at the level that he was playing at, whether if it was the Browns or some other team, that he was going to get a nice contract. And at this point, I think he's done in the NFL. We've seen these guys throughout the history of the league have problems like this, and if it keeps repeating, a lot of times, it hits a point where it's like, all right, you're done. It was kind of the same thing with Kareem Hunt. I mean, it's not the same thing, but still, Hunt had an incident. Gets released, gets another chance, turns his career around, and now he's, been extended with the Browns. So you take a chance on somebody like that and it works out. And for Malik McDowell, Andrew Berry took a chance on a guy who was, really graded as a first round draft pick out of Michigan State. A guy with great size, great athleticism, and it didn't work out. And it's unfortunate because it didn't have to be this way. Because at the end of the day, Malik McDowell's decisions are the reason why he's not going to be in the NFL much longer. And that's very, very frustrating. Um, and I don't mean to make this about the Browns, but I think as a Browns fan and me being a Browns channel, you got to look at this from a different point of view now, because we're heading into the off season. Technically, we're already in the off season. But defensive tackle was already a question mark, because you really didn't know what you had, going forward. And now that Malik McDowell has been arrested, he'll be gone. What happens for the draft? What happens in free agency? Do the Browns feel confident in Tommy Togiai and Jordan Elliott and guys like that? Maybe, but are they confident in them enough to make them starters? I doubt it. So you look at that 13th pick now. Malik McDowell's gone. You need a star wide receiver. If the board doesn't fall how they think it's going to, right? Let's just say they love Garrett Wilson. Let's say Garrett Wilson gets picked before. They're not really thrilled with Jamison Williams' injury. They're not really thrilled with Chris Olave that early. Do they sit there and they take DeMarvin Leal? Do they look at Jordan Davis out of Georgia? Um, Jim Hammer, hey, good to have you over here. He said, dude once allegedly was driving a 70K truck, claimed that he bought it off the street. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, this guy could have had a really good NFL career. I'm not saying he would have been a Hall of Famer or anything like that, but I mean, you look at the talent that he has. From the start, this kid has just making bad decisions straight out of Michigan State. Straight out of Michigan State. I mean, he was projected to be a high first round draft pick, mid 20s, something like that. And he slips to 33. The Seahawks pick him, take a chance on him. And it's like he never played a game for Seattle. And here we go. Cleveland gives him a chance, says, hey, if you can keep yourself together, we believe in you. We'll give you a chance. And it's like, man, this is what happens. Like, I understand people have problems, and I understand, some people seem to have issues over and over again, but I would think, if you put yourself in Malik McDowell's shoes, you're a great athlete, high draft pick, you get yourself in trouble, big time trouble, and you get a second chance. Maybe it's just me, but I would do everything in my power to keep it, do the best I can, and try to regain my career. So I just do not understand what goes through his head, and I don't understand what makes him think that he can just do this stuff, yeah, unless he just hates football, and I doubt that's it, because if he did, I don't know why he would try to come back, but it's like, man, these decisions he's making are just stupid. Um, but back to the draft and how this is going to affect the Browns going forward. I don't have the list of guys as far as free agency in front of me. I'd have to look that up and talk about that. But and Jim Hammer says drugs are bad. Yeah, they are. I don't know if I'd have to read more into it. I don't know if drugs are his problem or if it's just um himself, but as far as the draft goes, it's something to pay attention to because now the Browns are in an interesting situation here on, do you go receiver or do you feel like defensive tackle is a bigger need? I personally still would go receiver just because I think that's more important given the decisions the Browns have to make going forward, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Marino, he got arrested. Hold on, let me read it to you again, and I'm probably not going to keep this long. Okay, here we go. Brown's defensive tackle charged with public exposure on and battery on a law enforcement officer in Florida. So it's not a small thing, um, and it's pretty sad reading all the comments, because everybody just saying the same thing. Why would you do this? And that's another thing. I mean, it really seemed like he did turn things around. It seemed like he was on the right path, to get his career back on track and whatnot. But this sucks. It sucks for the Browns, but it sucks for him as a person that, you're gifted all these talents and you know, yeah, and Jeremy, I feel the same way. I really did think that he was on the right path. I thought that the Browns were going to keep him around. I can't remember if his deal was up this year, this offseason, or if it was next year. My guess would be it was this year because it would be a 1 year deal. And again, he was setting himself up to get a nice 2-3 year contract. I don't know what the number would be, but it would be a lot better than what he signed for. And he had a real chance to turn things around, and you know, here we go. And I feel the same way, Marino. He was, and he was really fun to watch. Because it's really hard, in the NFL at defensive tackle to find guys who are really good pass rushers. Normally, it's either one or the other. Either you can only rush the passer, or you're a good run defender from the D tackle spot. I thought he was pretty good overall. Um, but when it comes to the pass rush, his size and his ability, he was just, you don't want to say unstoppable, but man, there were some points in the season where he just made elite plays. Um, and just to throw all that away, it's very, very disappointing. So, um, but as far as my guess going forward, how the Browns are going to handle this, he'll probably be released, if not just not re-signed, assuming that he is on the 1 year. And then again, gonna have to check out free agency options. Then they got an interesting decision to make because let's say 13 happens, and let's say at 13, a guy like a Garrett Wilson is there and they want to take him, right? They take him at 13. What happens in the second round if there's a guy, um, this wouldn't happen. Let's just say hypothetically. Let's say a Jordan Davis were to slip. Crazier things have happened. Christian Barmore slipped a lot last year, and people thought he would go first round. Um, let's just say that happens. But let's say somebody else like a Malik Willis is still on the board or something like that. Like these are the decisions that the Browns are really getting themselves into. Um, and they're going to have a lot of tough choices to make because yes, the defense is important. Yes, all that, but you got to figure out what you got in Baker. And this is the last year to do it. You're not going to want to do the franchise tag at 40 million per year. You're not going to want to re-sign a guy long term if you're not confident. So this year is the year to figure it out offensively. The defense turned around massively this year. After really that Bears game was kind of the turning point. They started using their guys better, a lot more man coverage, blitzes, using guys creatively, and you know, it is what it is. Um, Jeremy says he was on a 1 year. Any thoughts if the Browns could handle it and do like they did with Hunt? Here's the thing, and I think he's done, and I don't think it's just with the Browns. I think it's in the NFL in general. Because the thing with Kareem Hunt is he didn't have, and I could be wrong, but I don't remember him having a prior history of issues. And then you had the incident, and there was multiple different things coming out of that incident. She was really, I guess, antagonizing him would be a way to say it. Using racial slurs and all that. To me, that's different than Malik McDowell, where you have these issues over and over and over. Um, and then the issue with the police officer and this now coming up again, battery on law enforcement officer. This is not something they're just going to keep recycling through. This front office, and it could be just coach speak. This stuff happens all the time, but the whole idea of tough, smart, and accountable players, what this front office is going for, um, right now, Malik McDowell is not smart and he's not accountable. Now, he's tough. He's a great player, but they're not going to keep a guy like this around. It's unfortunate, but again, he did it to himself. We can sit here and say how sad it is and how disappointing it is, but at the end of the day, he did it to himself and he's ruining his life and it's going to be nobody's fault but his. So, it's really really unfortunate. Um and I don't know. This throws yet another wrench into the off season, you know. So, it is what it is. It's not the Browns' fault. They gave a guy a second chance who, was really talented. He had a great year. It worked out from that standpoint. But at the end of the day, he just can't get out of his own way. So, it is what it is. And the Browns are going to have to move forward. And for Malik McDowell's sake, hopefully he just gets his life together because he's not going to have another chance. I highly doubt it. Um, Marino says, I think Baker is the best option. I know he was hurt, but I believe he will play better. Wide receivers who want to work or be here, just think of the things we could have or would have to give up for Watson or Wilson. Yeah. Here's what I'll say on the Baker front. And I know this isn't about Baker, and I'll probably end this here shortly, but what I had said was I see no way that Baker's a starting quarterback next year. Now, that has changed because I think you've seen a lot more clarity coming out from the Browns organization as a whole. as far as what's going on behind the scenes a little bit. Now, obviously, they're not going to tell you. Of course, Andrew Berry, in his press conference, he's not going to say, "Oh no, we don't want Baker. We're going to trade him." Like that's just not going to happen. But I do think they will look at all options as they should. But I don't think they're willing to give up a lot. I think they look at this team, see that there's a lot of great young players, and take it as an opportunity to build going forward. And this is what I said on Twitter. I said, I can't believe the Browns with this roster are in a position right now at 13 to draft a great player because, you look at the top 10, let's just say, draft wise. It's a lot of offensive linemen, a lot of defensive linemen, a couple good DBs. So for the Browns, if you need a wide receiver, this is the perfect year to do it. And now with this wrench thrown in, could be defensive tackle. But I don't know. As far as giving up things, I don't know. Deshaun Watson is a great player, but I'm just not sold that first of all, he would want to come to Cleveland because he'd have to waive a no trade clause. So I don't think that's happening. And then as far as Russell Wilson, it's kind of the same thing. I don't think he's really going to want to come to Cleveland. And to me, if you're going to move on from Baker, you're going to need somebody who is a little bit bigger and is a lot more mobile. So, uh, and Marino says, plus the offense played bad as a whole, not all on Bake. Here's the problem. People say there's two sides of this, and there's only the extremes. There's very little middle ground, and if you are in the middle ground, you get accused of being a Baker hater. My thoughts on Baker is he's a guy with an extremely talented arm, accuracy, arm strength. However, he has physical limitations with his size. I don't think that's going to hurt him as much as some other people do because we've seen the quarterbacks his size or smaller succeed. My problem with Baker is what's in his head. He's continuously going back to these bad habits. He's nervous in the pocket. He doesn't create windows. He doesn't know when to throw and when not to throw. And I agree. I think Baker's going to have a better year this year. But is going forward, the only way that Baker Mayfield gets an extension next year is if he plays incredible the entire year. And that's just I think that's a lot to ask. And then Brian says, "Here's the thing with Baker. He's our guy. Who are we gonna replace him with? No one." That's what we're looking at now. Is they're gonna look at trade options. I don't think they're gonna find any. Odds are they won't be drafting a quarterback, at least not in the first round. Um, my guess would be they're gonna sign somebody to be a competent backup because Case Keenum is not that. So I think they need to. I think they need to bring somebody in who, if Baker gets hurt, can play, and play well, operate the offense. And then also, if Baker flat out sucks, he needs to have somebody over his left shoulder saying, "Hey, I can take your job." And I know there's people who say he's not going to respond well to that. I agree. He's not. He's going to hate that. He's going to, be mad at everybody. But to me, that's what's going to get the best out of him. If he feels like there's a legitimate threat behind him to take his job, to me, that's the best option. But uh, only one Zay says there are several guys to bring in when you think clear and not under Baker's sack. Yeah, I agree. There are options, um, but the question is not necessarily who; it's what are they willing to give up because the better options have to come in a trade, and I don't think they're going to do that unless it's you know going to really work out for them. Jeremy says I think Baker has more potential. Just afraid, yeah, Browns will have a tough time bringing that out. Here's the thing with Baker: his ceiling, in my opinion, has not been reached yet, but his floor is so incredibly low that he plays bottom tier NFL quarterback. Like when Baker's bad, he's not just bad. He's horrible. He's terrible. Um so the issue is you need to see consistency. Because to me, I really don't care when it comes to the extension. I don't care if Baker plays fine next year. Do it the year after. Then you'll get my attention. Based on what we've seen so far throughout his NFL career, every other year has been garbage. And you can't have that. You can't extend somebody who has that. Um, I think we should pursue Watson or Wilson if those guys are going to bring in a quarterback for competition. Yeah, I agree, and I think that's what they're going to do. I think they're gonna look at all their options. They're not gonna say anything, but they will be looking around. They'll probably make some calls. I'm sure there'll be a couple calls for Baker from teams like Denver. Um, maybe Houston. I doubt it, but New Orleans, some teams like that will call and offer probably a 5th round pick or something like that. But I do think the Browns will look around at quarterbacks. And if that's not something they're gonna do, then I see them drafting somebody later. Later meaning like 2nd round um or bringing in a quarterback in free agency. I really like the idea of a Marcus Mariota because of the different aspect of the offense that he could bring. But that's just something we'll have to see. Um, Marino says we almost beat KC last year. It's not like we can't get into the playoffs with Baker. Yeah, I completely agree. There's no excuses. I don't care who the quarterback is. There's no excuses why this team shouldn't be in the playoffs next year. The schedule's easier. Your offensive line is going to get back healthier. You're going to have more weapons because they're going to sign somebody in free agency. You should draft somebody at 13. There's no excuses. So if Baker sucks next year, then it's Baker. I understand it's not all on him for this past season rather, but he's got to take some blame. It's not all his fault, but it's not none of his fault. That's why I say Browns fans, we need to have a middle ground here. Um, and Marino, here's my point on that. And when people say that Baker's the greatest quarterback the Browns have had in how many years, my problem with that is not that you're wrong, because you're not wrong. Who are you comparing him to? Because if you're comparing Baker Mayfield to Deshaun Kaiser, Cody Kessler, Brandon Weeden, Johnny Manziel, I couldn't care less. I really don't care. I don't care that Baker is the best out of that bunch. That means nothing to me. Um, the point where we're at right now is this roster is ready to go now, and we need to find out if we have the guy to get it done. And I think it's just going to take consistency. It's not that Jimmy Garoppolo is a great quarterback; he's just pretty consistent when he's healthy. Um, yeah, we have major hole at both defensive tackle spots now. Yeah, I don't know how they're going to handle it. It's going to be interesting. For watching the Wilson, we might have to give up 4 first-round picks, 2 players. Yeah, no, I ain't doing that. Mitch Trubisky. Yeah, I would like that. I would like Mitch Trubisky, not because he's a great quarterback necessarily, but I think you bring him into this offense and compete. I think he brings consistency and he brings a certain level of talent. Not that it's great, but it's good enough to challenge Baker, and that's what I like. And another guy that I would really like to get, and you'd have to trade for him, would be a Gardner Minshew type, because he's a guy who's very similar to Baker. And I think you bring him in, he's got a little bit of an attitude to him, really challenge Baker, see if you can get the best out of him. He says, I really like Willis. I don't think you start him now, but you could grab him in the 3rd and 4th if he drops. I love Malik Willis. He's just very raw. There's no chance he drops to the 3rd or 4th. He'll be a 2nd round pick at latest, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I don't claim to know everything. Just based on what you see, a guy who's got that much raw talent, to me, there's just no way he's gonna slip that far. But we'll see. I mean, the question is, if he's there in the 2nd round, right? Let's just say you take a Garrett Wilson or Jameson Williams or Chris Olave, one of those types, at 13. If Malik Willis is there in the 2nd round, I don't know. It's tempting. It's really tempting. Um, wouldn't mind to pursue Carr or Cousins. They're pretty established veterans. Here's the thing. I don't think Derek Carr is going anywhere. I think Derek Carr is going to stay in LA. The Kirk Cousins thing, they would not trade for him now because of the money. Next year, he's going to be a free agent. So I think the real chance is we're stuck with Baker this year, see what he's got, bring in a better backup, and then next year you might want to uh, look into things. Um, yeah. Carr, here's the thing with Derek Carr. I like him to an extent. I think he is a really good middle tier quarterback, and if you brought him in on a really good team, he could be more successful, but I'm not willing to give up a lot to get somebody like that. It's kind of the same thing with the Jimmy Garoppolo. He's a solid to pretty good mid-tier quarterback. I'm just not going to give up a lot for that. I would rather risk drafting somebody. Um, I give Baker this if we only. Not sure what that means. Uh, there will be at least 3 first-round quarterbacks. Many teams are desperate. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think this is going to benefit the Browns also because I think you're going to see, and another name that I keep hearing slip up, as far as the draft goes, because combine season, pro day season is when this hype stuff happens. Um, so I could see Malik Willis being one of those guys, but the one guy that I keep hearing, and it surprised me because I don't like him, but I could see it happening, is Sam Howell somehow slipping up and being a top pick, whether if it's to a team like Washington, Denver, trying to think who else. The Falcons are really an option, and also Minnesota might be an option to take a quarterback. New coach, new GM, I think. Yeah, new GM. If they don't like Kirk Cousins, draft a quarterback this year, have him sit, have Cousins for a year, then there you go. You know, and people think that this quarterback class sucks. I don't think they suck. I just think there's a lot of unknowns. Everybody wants the sure thing. There's no Trevor Lawrence in this class. There's no Justin Fields right now. It's a lot of Trey Lances. It's a lot of guys who you think could be good, but you're not super sold on. And I think Trey Lance is much more talented than a lot of these guys, but who knows? Uh could get a Trubisky type talent if you keep Baker. Yeah, I think so. I think that Trubisky would be a good guy to push Baker. I think at the end of the day, here's what it is. They have to make sure that he feels the heat. They can't go into the season with him feeling like, "Oh, I'm good. I got my job." You know, they need to go into the season going, "Hey, Baker, if you're not playing your best football, we got options." You know, um, Case is under contract, but you save $6 million if you release him. So absolutely release him, in my opinion. I mean, I understand Case Keenum is a good veteran quarterback. He understands the system. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying you need a guy who's way more talented because Case Keenum's not pushing Baker. At least, not this Case Keenum. If you got him a couple years ago, sure. But no, not right now. Um, but anyway, so Malik McDowell arrested. Very sad, very unfortunate. Don't know where we go from here, but defensive tackle has become a big need. I guess we just gotta pray that Jadeveon Clowney stays in Cleveland. Um, and it's gonna be interesting. What's my opinion on Kenny Pickett? I love Kenny Pickett. I think he's a great quarterback. I think the problem with Kenny Pickett is he's not exactly a very high upside guy. And a lot of teams fall in love with the high upside guys. So Pickett is, I think, going to come into the league, play really good, but I don't know. Kind of depends on where he goes. I hope he doesn't go to Pittsburgh. But I do think Kenny Pickett is a really good quarterback. Um, but I don't know. Just gonna kinda depend, but anyway. So, with that being said, everybody, thanks for checking this out. I know I normally don't do live streams, but again, um, like I said, my editing software is kinda bugging right now. So, this is the easiest way to, do this. But anyway, let me know your thoughts if you see this after it's been uploaded. Thank you for everybody who's been participating in the live chat. You make my job here easier. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts. Like, comment, subscribe, all that crap, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.